Hello Year 11 Triple Biology students. This is the next PowerPoint, Unit 2.6, Kidney and Homeostasis for just the Triple Award pupils. Hopefully you watched the videos that I directed you to earlier showing a kidney dissection. It's such a shame we didn't get to do the eye dissection in school before you went off on your self-isolation, and the same with the kidney, but I'm sure I will attempt to find a kidney and an eye when you are back in school, and we will repeat that when it's required. So the lesson objectives for today. Currently you haven't got these new booklets. They're in school, so when you return to school in just over a week's time, you will have a copy of this. We're looking at understanding the structure of the kidney, both the external and the internal structure, and its functions, including the role of regulating the water content of the blood. So the learning objectives are to know the role of the kidney, its job, its function, to be able to label a diagram of the human excretory system, and to be able to label a section through the kidney and its parts, and something called a nephron, which are the filter units within the kidney, and to understand the role of ADH and interpret data about the presence of substances during the passage through the kidney. Each of these objectives we will cover in separate lessons. So we will be looking at the first probably three in this first lesson today, but the role of ADH later will be another lesson. So in your booklet, when you do get them, on the very first page is a question, and it says, what is the job of your urinary system? And the urinary system is basically, it regulates the volume and composition of body fluids. It removes waste products from the body, and it expels the waste and excess water from the body in the form of urine. So this is just a posh way of saying it gets rid of your urine, but it's about regulating the amount of body fluids and what's in those body fluids, making sure that we're not removing essential things that the body could need. There's no point in eating food, digesting it to glucose, and then passing that glucose out of the body. That would be a complete waste. So obviously the organs that do this are the kidneys, and your kidneys remove poisonous substances which your cells produce. If we didn't remove these poisonous substances, they would build up in our body. So our bodies break down protein in our food. So we find protein in things like meat, eggs, fish, cheese, milk. We break that protein down into amino acids that you learnt about when you studied the section on enzymes back in year 10. These amino acids get taken to various parts in your body. They're used to build up proteins in our body. But some of these amino acids are not required. There might be excess amino acids. And when excess amino acids are in the body, they get taken to your to your liver. And your liver basically breaks down these excess amino acids. It deaminates them and turns them into urea. So we can see on this little flowchart here, amino acids in our blood come from the food that we eat, the proteins that have been broken down in digestion, particularly in the stomach and in the small intestine. And some of the protein is amino acids are converted back into protein and used for growth and repair, protein in your cells. And some of those amino acids are taken to the liver and they're broken down, they're deaminated and turned into urea. Now, urea is quite poisonous in your body, and so it needs to be removed. So from the liver, the urea is taken to the kidneys, travelling in your blood. So we know that this main poison your kidneys remove is urea, made in the liver from excess amino acids that have been broken down, and the technical term is deaminates, but I have yet to see that in a WJC exam for them to request that word. Urea is a poisonous substance. If it builds up in your body, it will poison the cells because it's waste. So your kidneys need to remove it from your blood. They also will remove excess salts or ions from your blood, and the urea and salts are dissolved in water to make a liquid called urine. And we'll be looking at how the quantity of urine, the volume and the concentration of it changes dependent on the conditions that your body is going through, whether you've had a lot of water to drink, whether you're dehydrated, whether you're sitting in a hot climate or in a cold climate. So can you fill in the missing words on that first page when we get the booklets? Some interesting facts about the kidneys. They filter about 1.3 litres of blood a minute. So 1.3 litres of blood passing through your kidneys in very, very small tubes. And we'll look at the structure, the detailed structure of the kidney, particularly these little tubes called nephrons, in the second lesson. All of the body's blood flows through the kidneys every 10 minutes. So basically your blood is filtered about 150 times a day to remove all this excess urea that could build up and poison your body. So this is what our excretory system looks like, and this is what WJC require you to be able to label. So we can see our diagram of the kidney. Bear in mind, when these diagrams are drawn, just like when we did the heart, labeling the heart, that diagrams are always drawn as if they are in your body. So if we're looking at this, this is the left kidney. This is the right kidney. So even though that appears on the right-hand side of the screen, this kidney, it is the left kidney because it's drawn as if it is in your body. So we're going to start with, first of all, the veins. We have the renal artery and the renal vein. Now, the renal artery is this red one here. Sometimes they will be coloured on your exam papers. Sometimes the exam papers are black and white. So you will need to be able to identify which one is the renal artery. And it normally will say, okay, that it's come away from the heart, okay, and it's bringing this dirty blood, in other words, this blood that needs cleaning, with the waste into the kidneys. So it's come from the heart via the liver, it's picked up the urea, and it's coming down to the kidneys. When it gets to this point, the renal artery splits so that it goes to our left kidney here and our right kidney over on this side. Then we've got the kidney itself, and it looks like a kidney bean shape. They are probably around about in humans, about 8 to 10 centimetres in length, and they're quite rounded, but they're quite soft structures. They're not hard. We've got two tubes coming from the kidneys, and we can see these tubes coming down here. These tubes are called the ureters, and they're tubes that are going to carry our urine, our waste, okay, to this structure here. This is the bladder. The bladder is a bag, quite a muscular, flexible bag that stores the urine, so it can stretch to accommodate a large volume. And then at the exit of the bag, you have this very important muscle. It's called your sphincter muscle. It's a ring of muscle that keeps the bladder closed until you go to the toilet. When you're young, you have no control over that sphincter muscle. And you have to learn how to get control so that you toilet train and end up coming out of nappies. And then this final tube, this is where scientific names get very confusing because they sound very similar. This is called the urethra. The urethra takes the urine out of the body. Lots of people get it mixed up with ureters, which take the urine from the kidneys to the bladder. So once the blood has been cleaned from the renal artery through these kidneys, the cleaned blood is going to pass back to the renal vein from both left and right kidney, and it's going to go back to the heart where it's going to be pumped back around the body. So in your book, on the second page, you will be filling in these key words that we've underlined: renal artery, renal vein, the kidneys, the ureters, the bladder, the sphincter, the urethra, and leaving back through the renal vein. Now see how much you can remember. See if you can draw yourself your own little picture on a scrap piece of paper and be able to label the different parts up. So we're now going on to the internal structure of the kidney, both external actually and internal structure of the kidney. Hopefully from the videos that you watched earlier today, you will have seen what the kidney looks like, okay, and seen somebody actually slice through the kidney with a pretty sharp knife on the BBC Bite-Size video. Quite a large blade that she used to slice through. With kidneys, when we do them in class, we tend to get lamb's kidneys from Tesco's. You can buy them in packs of around about 5 to 6 small lamb's kidneys. You have to be really careful that the kidneys are in date, shall we say. If they are a little bit past their best before date, obviously we're not going to be eating them, but they become quite squishy as the cells start to break down. I can remember a time where I left the kidneys in my car on the floor on the hour journey to work, and by the time I got to work, they were quite warm from the fan heater and they were not easy to cut. They go very, very squishy. So firmish kind of kidneys that come just out of the fridge are best to cut. Otherwise, it becomes very quickly like chocolate mousse. It's not very nice to handle. So on the outside of our kidney, if I draw just around the outer layer around here, it is a dark brown colour, okay, on the outside part of the kidney. Once we've sliced in half, you very rarely get the renal arteries and renal veins left on kidneys that we use for dissection, because lots of the material that we use for dissection comes from either the butchers or from the supermarket, and these things are quite stringy and tough, and so they get chopped off at the abattoir, okay, so that they're not passing to us in the food chain. But if we look, we can see our renal artery, which would be bringing the blood into the kidney, and that would be dirty blood that had a lot of urea, and then a renal vein, which would be taking the clean blood back out of the kidney, back up to the heart, so it can be pumped around the body. We also have this white kind of quite muscular tissue here. This is the ureter, so this is what's going to take the urine down to the bladder. That normally you can see a little part of it left on the kidney. You normally don't get the whole long part of the ureter. It's normally chopped off to around about here. So once we've sliced it open, it should be quite clear to see these kind of like triangular structures inside. And we have what we call the outer cortex, which is pointing to this area around the outside of the edge. So you've got your dark brown outer part of the kidney and this very, very pinky reddy colour on the inside. So that's the outer cortex. And then these little triangular structures here, they're called the medulla, the middle section of the kidney. And we can see that they lead down to the ureters as well here. When these lead down to the ureter, we have this middle part of the kidney. Right here, this section here is called the pelvis. And what this little cross-section is showing is that in this outer cortex area just here, so we can see there's the brown outer part of the kidney, just here in the outer cortex, and this would be the medulla area just here. So I'll put M for medulla, C for cortex. We have these little structures. These are the filter units. They are called nephrons, and there are millions of them in your kidneys. They make up all of this outer area they start at, and they go into the medulla. This is what the blood is going to be filtered through, and as I said, we will look at the structure of those in detail in the next lesson. So on page 3 in your booklet, if you are able to get hold of a kidney, I know you are self-isolating, so please do not go out to the supermarkets to go and get one. But if a friend of the family or a family member is able to go out, okay, and you're able to get some kidneys, you could do this at home as well. So page 3 shows you examine the outside of the kidney, notice any tubes or vessels and its colour and texture, draw the external appearance in the little box. Then slice it open very carefully. Always keep the knives well away from your fingers and cut away from yourself. Carefully observe the inside of the kidney. You will definitely see these little triangular pockets, these medullas. You'll definitely be able to see the outer cortex. You'll definitely see the pelvis, and you might see the remains of the ureter. It's very doubtful you would see the renal artery and vein. And this detail, you will not be able to see. This you can only see with a microscope, okay? So you draw the internal appearance, label up your layers, and then on page 4, at the top of the page, is the external and internal structure of the kidney, if you can label that diagram. We'll leave it at that for today because the nephron is quite detailed, so I want to spend another lesson just looking at the structure of the nephron, its role, and what happens where at the various parts. So that is your first lesson on the Kidney and Homeostasis booklet, Unit 2.6. Thank you.